Hey everyone. Um, we have a little crash course on Macbeth today. So I just kind of wanted to go over with all of you what has happened in Macbeth so far. I know we talked about Macbeth being a pretty hard text, but hopefully you like the story so far. I think that once you get into it a little bit more, you're going to really get to know the characters better and the story is going to make a lot more sense to you. So you've read Act 1 and a little bit of Act 2. And so far, we know that in Act 1, it's really about loyalty, right? So we meet Macbeth, and at the very beginning, he is laid out as this very brave soldier that has saved Malcolm, and Duncan is so grateful that he has done this really great thing for him in battle, right? And Macbeth is born to be a loyal soldier. That is what he has done his whole entire life. He was even brave enough to stay around when he was totally outnumbered by the Norwegian army, and he ended up being victorious in the end, right? So he stayed with Banquo and fought the Norwegians, even though the Thane of Cotter was a total traitor. But then the witches come around, right? So we meet these three witches that are pretty mischievous, and they prophesize to Macbeth that he is going to have these great things come to him. But we learn right away that the witches are up to no good, right? So the first time we meet them, they're with the sailor, and the thing that they thought that would be really kind of fun to do was to take sleep away from him. And we can already see, if you remember from the beginning of Act 2, and we'll go to there in a few minutes, that sleep is going to be a really big motif in the play. Because we all know that we can only sleep when things are peaceful and we don't have a lot of stressors in our life. So that becomes a really big thing for Macbeth going forward. So the three prophecies that Macbeth gets are that he's Thane of Glamis, which he is. He's going to be Thane of Cotter, and he's going to be king, which seemed pretty unrealistic to Macbeth at first. And he comes across the witches with his best friend Banquo. Banquo is much more realistic. We already learned that about him. He's not going to jump on things as quickly as Macbeth is going to. So the three things the witches tell Banquo are that he's going to be lesser than Macbeth but greater, not so happy yet much happier, and that he shall never be king, but his sons are going to be king. So after this goes about, the witches kind of disappear, and both Banquo and Macbeth think it's just completely crazy. But soon thereafter, the soldiers come, right? And what happens? They tell Macbeth that the king is so happy with he and Banquo for what he did in battle, and that the Thane of Cotter was a traitor. Macbeth is shocked, and that the Thane of Cotter is going to be executed. And guess what? Macbeth is going to be Thane of Cotter. So that kind of stirs up a little something for Macbeth. The first prophecy indeed came true. Then who do we meet? We meet Lady Macbeth, right? So Macbeth writes a letter to Lady Macbeth telling him what happened in the woods. Everything was so crazy, the craziest thing ever, right? But it was the one thing at the end of the letter that the witches said that he could possibly be king that kind of set the wheels turning for Lady Macbeth. And there's three really big problems for Lady Macbeth. One being that she knows her husband. He's really kind, very loyal. It's not like he's not a brave soldier. He totally is. And he is very ambitious, but he would never want to win something foully. Problem number two is that he's just gotten a really good promotion. He's Thane of Cotter, right? He's Duncan's right hand man. And why rush it? He hasn't even gotten to enjoy that yet. And problem number three is that Duncan is a beloved leader. And they both know that no one's going to stop till they find his killer. So those are three really kind of problematic things and kind of sound like they could be prophecies, right? A little bit. So there needs to be some convincing. She knows this is just not going to go down that easily, right? So she knows that Macbeth isn't going to just say, oh, yeah, let's do it. She has to take this into her own hands. And he said several times already that he's just not going to do it. He's not going to do it. So is there something else bothering Macbeth that allows him to finally succumb to Lady Macbeth? This is a really interesting point, and something that's talked about a lot in the play. It's one of the mysteries of Macbeth, and there's another one a little bit further down the line, but this is mystery number one. There are several ideas in Macbeth that are never fully explained, and one of them is the idea of whether the Macbeths ever had children. There's a passage where Lady Macbeth is really mad at Macbeth when he says that he's not going to kill Duncan. And she says to him, I have given suck and known how tender to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you had done this to me. So, what she's saying, really, is that she would have killed a baby, her own baby. She would be that angry if she knew that Macbeth would ever betray her like this. So, kind of like a plot twist. A lot think that the Macbeths had a baby that died, and it's part of the reason why Lady Macbeth is so crazy, and Macbeth has some crazy tendencies as well. Some say that Lady Macbeth's grave sadness is that she could never give Macbeth a child, and she wants to give something to her husband so desperately that she wants to give this kingship to him. Others say that Macbeth gives in to Lady Macbeth because she's so sad and she needs to have something in her life to make her happy. So it's kind of something to keep in the back of your head, this idea about children. It does come up later in the play. So this whole question, to kill or not to kill, that is still the question for Macbeth, right? The plan sounds solid. They're going to get the guards drunk. They'll pass out. Macbeth will kill Duncan, and then they'll smear the guards with the blood to make it look like they had killed Duncan. It seems pretty foul-proof, right? Macbeth finally settles on the idea, but he's not okay with it. No, he still reminds himself that he will have to wear a false face to get away with this. So he's not completely, you can hear the apprehension in his tone when at the end of Act 2 he says, okay, we'll do it. So Act 2 starts, and who do we meet at the beginning of Act 2? It's Banquo and Fleance, which seems kind of appropriate, really. Banquo and Fleance are in the kitchen in the Macbeth's castle. They've all gathered at the castle. Banquo has come with Duncan. They already said how engaging the castle is. It's very homey. It's very lovely. They have a beautiful dinner for everyone. So Banquo's in the kitchen, and things are lying pretty heavy on Banquo. The prophecies are bothering him. He's not able to sleep. And then Fleance is in the kitchen too. He's another sign of the prophecy, right? That he could one day be king. And this whole idea that only Banquo and Macbeth know what happened in the forest. This weighs heavy on Banquo. So when Macbeth comes into the kitchen to talk to Banquo, Banquo says to him, hey man, this is really weighing heavy on me. Like I really can't sleep about what we heard in the forest. And Macbeth says to Banquo, oh my gosh, are you still thinking about that? I haven't thought about that in so long. So he's trying to put Banquo off a little bit, but Banquo's pretty savvy. So he knows that maybe his friend is acting a little strangely at this point. So right after Banquo leaves, Macbeth is torn apart. His friend has just said to him, I've been thinking about the prophecies. Banquo feels very upset about, Macbeth feels very upset about the plan that Lady Macbeth has come up with. So he talks about his heat-oppressed brain. He's going crazy. He feels out of his mind, right? And what does he see before him but a dagger? He thinks he sees a dagger, and then all of a sudden, the dagger becomes bloody. And he thinks this is a sign from Hecate, who is the queen of all witches, that he is supposed to kill Duncan. He has gotten a sign, and he's supposed to do it. Yet the ending of the soliloquy shows signs of the old Macbeth when he says, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear the very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat, he lives, words to the heat of deeds to cold breathe gives. So he knows that if he doesn't do it right away, he is going to lose his courage and he may never do this. Lady Macbeth has it all under control, or so she thinks. So she gets the guards drunk. She thinks that everything's working. She's giddy. Like, she thinks that this is the best. She says the more drunk they got, the bolder she got. She even says that she would have killed him herself if he did not look so much like her father while he was sleeping. Pretty weird. Macbeth comes out and says, "I've done the deed," but right away he is anything but calm. He thinks the guards might have awoken. He can't say amen. He thinks he has murdered sleep for the rest of his life. Lady Macbeth tries to calm his nerves, saying, "Go wash the filthy deed from you." But she becomes enraged when she sees that he still has the daggers in his hands. She says to him, "Go back and put the daggers back immediately." What does he say? "No way. I am never going back in there again. I never want to see that again." So she says, "Give them to me and I'll do it." Macbeth at that point says that he has so much blood on him that if he puts his hands in the ocean, the entire ocean would turn red. So this is just a little bit of foreshadowing that the guilt is already overwhelming for Macbeth, and we know at this point that this is not going to be something that he's going to shake very easily. At the end of Act 2, Scene 2, there's a knocking at the gate. Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth to calm down, collect his thoughts. She's acting very motherly to him. She's trying to calm him down, say, "Your head is going crazy. You need to calm your thoughts." But all Macbeth can think about is the dead Duncan, and Macbeth wishes that the knocking could wake Duncan up. Oh no, things do not seem okay at this point. So that's a really quick crash course on Act 1 and part of Act 2 of Macbeth. And we will talk about more the next time we meet.